Straight to the details, we've got some interesting topics today. Onward's biggest update yet isn't going over well, plus there's a Battlefield-style VR shooter in the works, and Bigscreen is dropping potentially the most innovative VR headset we've seen so far, at least from a gaming perspective, the Bigscreen Beyond 2. If any of that sounds interesting to you, please give this video a like and hit the subscribe button for a small channel. Now, let's get started with a game that may resonate with earlier VR adopters. If you remember the earlier days of VR, you'll probably remember Onward, a VR military shooter. And, well, it just got its quote-unquote biggest update ever last week, but the reception so far seems a bit meh. In fact, some longtime players are straight up calling it another downgrade. Onward dropped its 2.0 update, which includes new weapons, a new map, reskins of many things from guns to other maps, and climbable ladders. That last one had me scratching my head a bit, because usable ladders in VR is something of an expectation nowadays. Full disclosure, I've never actually played Onward myself. It gave me some weird vibes when I first heard about it years ago, and honestly, I just never jumped in. Still, I did some digging on the game for this episode, and the community response to this one feels a bit mixed. Those of you who tune in regularly, thank you by the way, know Steam reviews are a favorite of mine for really deep diving into reviews. Especially because they show you hours on record, and you can see reviews from people with hundreds, or in this particular case, over 1,000 hours logged. This one review in particular caught my eye, over 1,000 hours of playtime, and they're basically saying the vibe I've been getting here. Much of the community feels like this update is more of a letdown than an upgrade, despite the noticeably improved visual quality on some maps. Of course, I say some because other maps remained untouched, leading to a jarring difference between the reskinned maps and the original. The general sentiment is that Onward kind of lost its soul a while back, around the time it got its MetaQuest port. Now, with this 2.0 update, people were hoping for a real return to form, but instead got a glossy coat of paint over some pretty big problems. Also, changing the game's release is a bit shady in my book, at least in this case. At the time of writing, Meta reflects the original release date, while on Steam it's kind of packaged as a new game altogether, which is definitely not the case. With moves like this, I can understand why some gamers are calling this update a cash grab move. Between Meta's financial backing, the long development lifecycle, and the seemingly underwhelming updates, it's not a good look for Onward right now. In contrast to that though, and in other news, we have a massive Battlefield-inspired VR FPS now in development. It's called Forefront, and while it doesn't have a release date yet, it's apparently in development for PC VR, Meta, and even Pico headsets. Triangle Factory is developing this game, and if they sound familiar, it's because these are the same developers that brought us Breachers. For all intents and purposes, Breachers was inspired by Rainbow Six Siege, and they did an excellent job with that game, contrary to how competitive the casual scene feels. Unlike a lot of early access VR projects I've seen, this one isn't flat out taking shots in the dark. There's actual focus backed by proven talent here. Forefront is aiming to bring large-scale class-based combat to VR. Think Battlefield, but built from the ground up for virtual reality. That means we can expect vehicular combat with tanks and helicopters among other things. We can also expect a class system that, just like Battlefield, doesn't hard lock you into a role, but instead gives you access to role-specific equipment. I'm not usually one to hype up games because I know where that train usually ends, but this one genuinely has me excited. It's exactly the kind of VR FPS people want to see more of, and the fact that it's coming from a proven studio makes it that much easier to trust. That said, I'm cautiously optimistic at best. Getting a 32-player game like this to actually run well on standalone headsets is going to be a big challenge. Scale is great, but gameplay and performance are everything for a game like this. Speaking of performance, and in other news, we have a new VR headset shipping this month from a company that prides itself on bleeding-edge VR headset technology. If you've been out of the loop, here's the quick catch-up. Bigscreen released their first headset, the Bigscreen Beyond, a while ago, and it caught a lot of attention for doing things differently. It was ultra lightweight, super small, and way more comfortable than pretty much anything else on the market. It did have its fair share of problems, like difficulty sharing the device due to how custom made per order they were, but now we've got the Bigscreen Beyond 2. The name isn't the most innovative, and at first glance it looks almost identical to the original, but there are a lot of improvements packed into the newer headset. Early reviews are already out and the impressions are trending up. We're talking about adjustable IPD, a wider field of view, and way less lens glare, which was also a pretty big issue with the original. I haven't tried the first Beyond headset myself because money, which now is a good time to talk about the price real quick because this one stings if you're on a budget. The base model Beyond 2 is going for $1,019, and if you want eye tracking, that version will cost you an additional $200. Definitely not cheap, but keep in mind this headset is marketed for enthusiasts who really want that bleeding edge experience, with high-end visuals in a super lightweight package. Orders are already live if you're interested, and the units are expected to start shipping this month. Now, from this sleek new, but not new looking headset to the ambitious 32 VR player FPS, there's a lot to be excited for. If you've made it this far, drop a comment and let me know your take on Onward's new update though. I'm especially curious how you feel about this update if you've played the game before. But as usual, obligatory like and subscribe, and if you like VR gaming, check out one of my reviews.